I've waited months to share this with you. What I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see yourself if you've ever been trapped in a relationship with a narcissist. This information is rarely discussed because it threatens the very core of how narcissistic people maintain control. Stay until the end, because the final insight is what finally freed thousands of people from the prison of these relationships. Something so powerful that when I first discovered it, I couldn't sleep for 3 days. This isn't just another video about narcissistic abuse. This is about the extraordinary power that lies dormant within the empath. A power so threatening that narcissists will do anything to keep you from discovering it. I spent 7 years researching the hidden dynamics between empaths and narcissists, interviewing over 300 survivors, and what I found contradicts almost everything being taught about these relationships. The truth is, what makes you vulnerable is also what makes you invincible. The very sensitivity that narcissists exploit becomes their undoing when you understand what I'm about to share: soul recognition. When an empath meets a narcissist, something extraordinary happens beneath the surface, a recognition that exists beyond conscious awareness. The empath's extraordinary capacity to feel deeply creates a perfect complement to the narcissist's emotional void. This initial connection feels cosmic, almost destined. You may have felt like you'd known them forever, that you were meant to heal them. This wasn't your imagination. It was your empathic nature recognizing a profound woundedness that resonated with your deepest calling to nurture and transform. Empaths enter these relationships not out of weakness, but because of their extraordinary capacity for compassion. You saw potential where others saw red flags. You sensed pain where others sensed danger. This is not naivety. It's your superpower operating without the proper framework. The problem was never your ability to see the best in others. It was that you weren't taught how to protect this gift. Every person who has survived a relationship with a narcissist carries within them an extraordinary sensitivity that society has labeled as weakness. But this sensitivity is actually a form of heightened consciousness that, when properly channeled, creates a force that narcissists cannot comprehend or control. This is why they targeted you specifically, not because you were weak, but because your strength threatened them in ways they couldn't articulate. The narcissist's greatest fear isn't being alone, it's being exposed. And no one can see through their facade more clearly than an awakened empath. This is the dynamic they instinctively understand from the moment they meet you. Every devaluation, every cruel word, every manipulation was designed with one purpose: to prevent you from recognizing your own power. They needed you confused, doubtful, and disconnected from your inner wisdom because they sensed what would happen if you ever fully awakened to your true nature. Invisible patterns. What most experts miss about these relationships is the unconscious contract that forms between the empath and the narcissist. This isn't just about codependency or trauma bonds, it's deeper. It's about energy exchange. Narcissists don't just take your attention or affection, they literally feed off your life force. That feeling of being drained isn't metaphorical. It's an actual energetic depletion that happens when someone constantly draws from your emotional resources without reciprocating. The most dangerous pattern in these relationships isn't the obvious manipulation. It's the subtle way narcissists position themselves as the focal point of your reality. Every thought, every decision, every emotional response gradually becomes centered around their reactions, their moods, their needs. This creates an alternate universe where your perception is filtered through their reality. You begin to lose trust in your own experience. This isn't just gaslighting, it's reality distortion at a fundamental level. And here's what makes it so difficult to escape. Your empathic nature is constantly searching for meaning. You're designed to find patterns, to create coherence from chaos. So when the narcissist's behavior makes no rational sense, your mind works overtime trying to construct a narrative that explains the inexplicable. This mental and emotional labor keeps you trapped in cycles of analysis and hope while they continue to extract what they need from you. The invisible thread that connects you becomes a chain. Your compassion becomes a prison. Your ability to see their potential becomes the very thing that blinds you to the reality of what's happening. And all the while, something within you is screaming for freedom, But that voice gets dimmer with each passing day as your life force is systematically drained to fuel someone else's empty existence. Energy vampirism. I need to explain something that might sound strange if you haven't experienced it firsthand. Narcissists literally cannot generate their own emotional energy. They lack the internal mechanisms that most humans have to create joy, satisfaction, and meaning from within. Instead, they must extract these feelings from others. This isn't a metaphor, it's an energetic reality that explains why you feel so depleted in their presence. When you walk away from an interaction with a narcissist feeling confused, exhausted, or empty, what's happened is an actual transfer of energy. They've used conflict, drama, or manipulation to create an emotional reaction in you, and then they fed off that reaction. The more intense your emotional response, whether positive or negative, the more they gain. This is why they oscillate between love bombing and devaluation. Both extremes generate the strong emotional currents they need to feel alive. Most dangerously, they're drawn to people with extraordinary emotional depth and compassion, empaths, because you represent an abundant source of what they lack. Your capacity to feel deeply, to care profoundly, to empathize completely makes you their ideal supply. It's like placing a starving person before a feast. They can't help themselves, and because you naturally want to help, to heal, to understand, you keep giving despite the depletion you feel. This dynamic creates a particular kind of exhaustion that's different from normal fatigue. It's a soul-level depletion that affects your physical health, mental clarity, and connection to your own purpose. Many empaths develop autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue, anxiety disorders, or depression after prolonged exposure to narcissistic abuse. Your body is literally telling you that your life force is being drained faster than you can replenish it. And here's the insidious part. The narcissist has convinced you that their needs are more important than yours, that their emptiness is your responsibility to fill, that their happiness should be prioritized over your well-being. This distorted reality becomes so normalized that you forget what it feels like to exist without this constant energetic drain. You adapt to functioning on empty because the alternative, facing the truth of what's happening, seems too devastating to bear. Awakening moment. But then something happens, a moment seemingly small that cracks the entire illusion. For some, it's catching a glimpse of genuine contempt on their face when they think you're not looking. For others, it's realizing they showed no concern when you were sick or suffering. Or perhaps it was witnessing how differently they behave when others are watching. Their sudden transformation into the person you always believed they could be, but only when there's an audience to impress. This moment is precious, sacred. It's your soul fighting for survival, creating a rupture in the false reality that's been constructed around you. Most people miss these moments because they've been conditioned to doubt their perceptions. They dismiss the flash of clarity as their own paranoia or unfair judgment. But those who begin the journey to freedom recognize this moment for what it is, the first ray of truth breaking through the darkness. The awakening is rarely a dramatic realization. It's more often a quiet knowing that something fundamental is wrong. A whisper from your deeper self that says, "This isn't love, this isn't normal, this isn't what you deserve." And once that whisper begins, it grows louder with each instance of disrespect, each manipulative tactic, each emotional wound that no longer feels justified by the moments of validation they occasionally provide. This awakening is what narcissists fear most. They can feel it happening, the shift in your energy when you begin to see through the illusion. They sense the change in your responses when their usual tactics no longer produce the same results. This is when the real battle begins, because a narcissist who feels their supply slipping away will escalate to unprecedented levels to regain control. The devaluation becomes more cruel, the manipulations more complex, the intermittent reinforcement more calculated. But something has changed within you. The spell is breaking, and even through the pain of their escalating abuse, a new strength is forming, one they cannot comprehend or control. Invisible strength. What transforms an empath from victim to victor isn't developing a harder shell or becoming more cynical. It's reconnecting with your true nature at a deeper level than ever before. The narcissist targeted you for your extraordinary sensitivity and compassion. These aren't weaknesses to be overcome. They're powers to be reclaimed and protected. The turning point comes when you realize that the same capacity that made you vulnerable to exploitation also gives you access to insights and awareness that the narcissist can never possess. They operate from a place of profound lack. You operate from abundance. They need external validation to feel worthy. You have the capacity to generate worth from within. They must manipulate reality to function. You can perceive reality with a clarity they'll never know. This realization changes everything. It shifts the entire dynamic of the relationship because you're no longer playing by the same rules. While they're strategizing about how to extract the next emotional reaction from you, you're connecting to a wisdom beyond their comprehension. This is why the most evolved empaths can ultimately predict narcissistic behavior with uncanny accuracy, not because they've become manipulative themselves, but because they see through the manipulation to the emptiness driving it. This shift in perspective reveals the narcissist not as an all-powerful figure who controls your reality, but as a deeply wounded being trapped in cycles of their own making. This doesn't excuse their behavior or minimize the harm they've caused. Rather, it places the relationship in its proper context. You begin to recognize that their opinion of you was never about you at all. Their criticisms, their comparisons, their constant devaluation, none of it reflected your true worth. It was always about their internal emptiness projected outward. As this understanding deepens, something remarkable happens. The hooks they've planted in your psyche, the self-doubt, the craving for their approval, the fear of their rejection, begin to loosen. Not all at once, but gradually, like roots being gently extracted from soil. You start to feel the stirrings of your authentic self again, parts of you that went dormant during the relationship awakening to new life. Truth emergence. Here's what most experts won't tell you. The path to freedom isn't just about leaving physically, it's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were suppressed to maintain the relationship. Every time you silenced your intuition because it contradicted their version of reality, a piece of your authentic self went into hiding. Every time you minimized your needs to avoid conflict, your boundaries became a little more permeable. Every time you accepted blame for their behavior, your sense of justice was distorted. Recovery isn't just healing from trauma, it's a radical homecoming to yourself. It's retrieving these fragmented aspects of your identity and reintegrating them into a more powerful whole. This process reveals strengths you never knew you possessed because they were precisely the qualities the narcissist most feared in you: your clarity, your boundaries, your unwillingness to accept less than you deserve. The most transformative truth emerges when you realize that the relationship served as an initiation, not one you would have chosen, but one that forged in you a level of self-knowledge and inner strength that couldn't have developed any other way. The narcissist, in their attempt to diminish you, accidentally created the conditions for your most profound growth. By trying to extinguish your light, they inadvertently caused it to burn brighter than ever before. This isn't toxic positivity or an attempt to reframe abuse as a gift. The harm was real, the trauma was unjust, but your transformation in the aftermath is a testament to your extraordinary resilience. While they remain trapped in the same cycles, you've evolved beyond what they could ever imagine. This evolution isn't despite the relationship, it was catalyzed by it. The greatest truth, the one that narcissists intuitively fear, is that empaths who recover from these relationships develop a particular kind of wisdom that makes them essentially immune to manipulation. The very experiences designed to break you have instead made you unbreakable in ways that extend far beyond this one relationship. You've developed a relationship with yourself so profound that external validation no longer determines your worth. Silent power. Now comes the phase that truly terrifies the narcissist, when the empath reclaims their power without announcement or drama. There's a moment in the recovery journey when something fundamental shifts. You no longer need them to understand your perspective. You no longer require their acknowledgement of the harm they caused. You no longer seek closure from someone incapable of providing it. This silent reclamation of power is what I call the superempath's exit, not just physically leaving the relationship, but energetically withdrawing your investment in their perception of reality. It happens when you fully recognize that their opinion of you was never about you at all. It was always a reflection of their own inner emptiness, their own unhealed wounds, their own inability to recognize authentic love. This realization creates a profound energetic shift. The cords that once bound you to their reality begin to dissolve. The emotional triggers that once sent you spiraling into self-doubt lose their charge. You observe their tactics with a new clarity, not with rage or hurt, but with a calm knowing that sees the patterns for exactly what they are. There's no longer any emotional payoff for them in attempting to manipulate you because you're operating from a different plane of consciousness altogether. This is when the narcissist faces their worst nightmare, irrelevance, not rejection, which still provides them with emotional fuel, but complete energetic detachment. They sense this shift immediately because they can no longer extract what they need from you. Your emotional responses, which once provided them with the validation or conflict they craved, have been replaced by a centered presence they cannot penetrate or disturb. The superempath's exit is silent because it requires no external declaration. It's not announced through confrontation or explained through final conversations that only create new opportunities for manipulation. It's an internal revolution that manifests as a changed energetic field around you, one that no longer permits invasion or extraction. This is power at its most refined, not power over others, but sovereignty over yourself. Soul alchemy. What follows this reclamation of power is nothing short of alchemy. The wounds inflicted during the relationship, the doubts about your worth, the confusion about reality, the fear of trusting your perceptions, become the exact materials from which your new strength is forged. This isn't just healing in the conventional sense, it's transformation at the soul level. The heightened sensitivity that once made you vulnerable becomes your greatest insight tool, allowing you to perceive truth beneath layers of deception. The compassion that was exploited becomes more discerning, capable of distinguishing between those who will honor it and those who will abuse it. The boundaries that were violated become unshakable, informed by a wisdom that recognizes the first subtle signs of disrespect. This alchemy creates a particular kind of resilience that can only be forged through this specific crucible. It's not that you become hardened or less compassionate, quite the opposite. Your capacity for genuine connection actually deepens, but you develop an intuitive recognition of authenticity that operates beyond conscious thought. You can sense the difference between real emotional availability and its convincing counterfeit. The most profound transformation occurs in how you perceive your own worth. Before, your value was tied to external validation, particularly from the narcissist whose approval seemed so crucial. Now, your worth is self-evident, requiring no outside confirmation. This shift creates a foundation of internal security that no relationship, circumstance, or challenge can undermine. You no longer seek to be chosen. You do the choosing based on standards that honor your authentic needs. This alchemical process ultimately reveals the gift hidden within the painful experience. You've developed a relationship with yourself that most people never achieve in a lifetime. The depth of self-knowledge, the capacity for self-compassion, the unwavering trust in your own perceptions. These become the gold extracted from what once felt like endless darkness. And unlike external forms of validation that can be given and taken away, this inner gold is permanently yours. Wisdom integration. As your healing deepens, you begin to integrate the wisdom gained from the experience in ways that extend far beyond your understanding of narcissism. You recognize similar dynamics in other relationships, in cultural systems, in societal patterns. The lens through which you view human behavior has been forever altered, allowing you to perceive layers of motivation and meaning that remained hidden before. This expanded awareness doesn't make you cynical. It makes you more precisely compassionate. You can now distinguish between authentic vulnerability and manipulation disguised as openness. You can recognize the difference between someone working through their wounds and someone using their wounds as weapons. This discernment doesn't diminish your capacity to love. It ensures that your love is directed where it can truly flourish rather than being exploited. The wisdom integration phase is where many empaths discover their deeper purpose. Having navigated this particular crucible, you develop a natural ability to guide others through similar terrain. This doesn't necessarily mean becoming a coach or counselor, though many do. It might express itself through art that speaks truth to those still trapped in illusion. It might manifest as creating spaces where authentic connection can flourish. It might appear as standing firmly for truth in environments where manipulation has been normalized. What's most remarkable about this phase is how your relationship with pain transforms. The emotional wounds that once felt unbearable become your greatest teachers. The betrayals that seemed unforgivable reveal profound truths about human nature and resilience. The periods of confusion and self-doubt lead to clarity that could not have been achieved any other way. Nothing is wasted in this integration. Every painful experience becomes meaningful in the context of your evolution. This integration creates a particular kind of presence that others can sense. Those still trapped in narcissistic dynamics are often drawn to you, not knowing exactly why, but feeling a resonance with the freedom you embody. Those who have never experienced such relationships sense a depth in you that inspires trust. You become a living demonstration that it's possible to encounter darkness and emerge not just intact, but illuminated. Rebirth cycle. The final phase of the superempath's journey involves a complete paradigm shift in how you understand the experience. What once felt like senseless suffering reveals itself as a catalyst for your most profound evolution. This isn't about minimizing the pain or excusing the abuse. It's about recognizing that what was meant to destroy you instead initiated you into a level of consciousness that would have been inaccessible through any other path. This rebirth doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds in layers, with each new level of healing revealing deeper insights about yourself, about human behavior, about the nature of love and power. The process isn't linear. There will be days when old triggers resurface, when doubt creeps back in, when the pain feels fresh again. But these moments no longer define you or derail your progress. They simply indicate areas that require more gentle attention from your now compassionate inner witness. The most visible sign of this rebirth is how differently you engage with relationships. You no longer abandon yourself to gain acceptance from others. You no longer mistake intensity for intimacy. You no longer confuse manipulation with love. You recognize that true connection can only exist where there is mutual respect, emotional reciprocity, and the freedom to be authentically yourself without fear of punishment or abandonment. This rebirth affects every aspect of your life because it fundamentally changes how you perceive yourself in relation to the world. Where once you may have felt a need to please others to ensure your safety or belonging, you now understand that your worth is innate and unchangeable. This shift creates a new kind of freedom, not just from the specific narcissistic relationship that catalyzed your transformation, but from all dysfunctional patterns that stemmed from the same core wounds. The final evidence of rebirth comes when you can look back on the relationship with genuine compassion, both for yourself and from a safe distance for the narcissist trapped in their own prison of emptiness. This compassion isn't based on denial or spiritual bypassing. It's grounded in the profound understanding that hurt people, and that your freedom from the cycle is the greatest victory possible. You don't need their punishment to validate your experience. Your transformation is validation enough. Freedom echo. What most experts won't tell you is that there comes a point in your healing journey where the narcissist becomes irrelevant, not in a vengeful, you don't matter to me way, which would still indicate emotional investment. Rather, they simply no longer occupy significant space in your mental or emotional landscape. The freedom is so complete that you can go days, weeks, eventually months without them crossing your mind at all. This freedom isn't measured by how much you've learned about narcissism or how well you can analyze the relationship in retrospect. It's measured by how fully you've returned to yourself, to your joy, your purpose, your authentic expression. It's measured by how naturally you now protect your boundaries without anxiety or guilt. It's measured by how readily you recognize and honor your own needs, rather than automatically deferring to others. The most powerful evidence of freedom is how you respond to new relationships. When someone shows you genuine respect, it no longer feels foreign or uncomfortable. When someone honors your boundaries, you no longer feel guilty for having them. When someone treats you with consistency rather than the chaotic cycles of idealization and devaluation, you no longer mistake stability for boredom. Your entire framework for what constitutes love has been recalibrated to align with your true worth. This freedom creates an echo effect in your environment. As you embody these shifts, you naturally attract different types of connections. Without consciously trying, you find yourself surrounded by people capable of reciprocity, emotional honesty, and authentic care. These relationships don't drain you, they energize you. They don't confuse you, they bring clarity. They don't diminish your light, they celebrate it. The ultimate freedom comes when you recognize that the relationship, despite all its pain, played a necessary role in your evolution. Without that specific catalyst, certain aspects of your strength, wisdom, and resilience might have remained dormant. This doesn't mean you needed to be abused to grow. It means that having gone through that particular fire, you've gained capacities that benefit not just yourself, but everyone whose life you touch going forward. Inner sanctuary. The final insight, the one that completes the super-empath's transformation, is understanding that your heightened sensitivity is neither a burden to overcome nor a weakness to protect. It is a sophisticated guidance system that, when properly honored, navigates you toward authentic connection and away from exploitation. The very quality that made you vulnerable to narcissistic manipulation becomes your greatest strength when you learn to trust it implicitly. This sensitivity allows you to perceive what others miss, the subtle inconsistencies between words and actions, the almost imperceptible shifts in energy that signal dishonesty, the quiet voice of intuition that whispers warnings or encouragement. Rather than dulling this sensitivity to avoid future pain, you develop a new relationship with it. You create internal conditions where this gift can flourish without leaving you vulnerable to those who would abuse it. This inner sanctuary isn't built through isolation or hypervigilance. It's created through discernment, knowing when to open and when to protect, when to give and when to conserve, when to trust and when to step back. This discernment isn't fear-based, it's wisdom-based, informed by both your painful experience and your deepened self-knowledge. It allows you to remain open-hearted without being naive, compassionate without being exploited. The most beautiful aspect of this inner sanctuary is how it affects your relationship with yourself. The harsh inner critic installed or amplified by narcissistic abuse is gradually replaced by a compassionate inner witness. The parts of yourself that were rejected or shamed are welcomed home and reintegrated. The self-doubt that once clouded your perception clarifies into self-trust. You become your own safe haven, a state of being that no external relationship can provide or take away. From this sanctuary, you engage with the world differently. You're no longer driven by the need to prove your worth or earn your place. You no longer fear abandonment at the first sign of disagreement. You no longer compromise your truth to maintain harmony. This inner security creates a particular quality of presence that others experience as both strength and openness, a combination that invites authentic connection while naturally deterring those with exploitative intentions. Legacy creation. The final stage of the super-empath's journey transcends personal healing and enters the realm of legacy. Having transformed your wounds into wisdom, you naturally begin to share this hard-won knowledge with others, not from a place of unresolved trauma or identity, but from genuine compassion for those still trapped in the darkness you've navigated. This sharing takes countless forms. For some, it becomes their life's work through formal channels of support and education. For others, it expresses through art that illuminates these hidden dynamics. For many, it manifests simply as the quiet wisdom they offer friends or family members, showing signs of similar struggles. However it appears, this legacy becomes a light in the darkness for others, just as others' lights guided you when you needed it most. What makes this legacy so powerful is that it's not theoretical, it's embodied. You're not just sharing information about narcissistic abuse and recovery, you're demonstrating what freedom looks like in how you live, love, and engage with the world. Your boundaries, your self-respect, your ability to remain compassionate without becoming a doormat, these tangible expressions of your transformation create a template that helps others imagine new possibilities for themselves. This legacy extends far beyond helping other survivors of narcissistic abuse. The wisdom you've gained applies to all forms of manipulation and control, in personal relationships, in workplaces, in cultural systems. You become a carrier of a particular kind of truth that our world desperately needs. That exploitation is not the price of connection. That authenticity need not be sacrificed for acceptance. That sovereignty and compassion can coexist beautifully. Perhaps most importantly, your legacy includes breaking generational patterns that may have contributed to your vulnerability in the first place. Whether you're a parent, mentor, friend, or community member, you now model different possibilities for those watching and learning from you. The clarity with which you recognize manipulation, the confidence with which you maintain boundaries, the authenticity with which you express your needs, these create new reference points that help others calibrate their own internal compasses. Final truth. And here's the insight that changed everything for me and for thousands of others who've made this journey. The relationship with the narcissist was never about them. It was always about you, not in the way they tried to make you believe, where everything wrong was somehow your fault. Rather, in the deeper truth that this particular crucible was exactly what your soul required to activate its fullest expression. This doesn't mean the abuse was deserved or necessary. It means that your soul knew what it was doing even when your conscious mind could not understand the purpose behind the pain. The relationship served as an initiation into a level of consciousness, compassion, and clarity that might have remained dormant without this catalyst. The very experiences designed to diminish you instead revealed your immeasurable strength and worth. The narcissist, despite their intentions, did not destroy you. They awakened you. In their attempt to exploit your light, they inadvertently caused it to burn more brightly than ever before. In trying to make you doubt your perceptions, they forced you to develop unshakable trust in your inner knowing. In working to isolate you from your authentic self, they ultimately led you to a homecoming so profound that you can never be separated from your truth again. This is why the narcissist's worst nightmare is not your anger, your confrontation, or even your departure. It's your complete transformation, your shift from wounded healer to awakened warrior. While they remain trapped in the same cycles of emptiness and exploitation, you've evolved beyond anything they could comprehend. The very qualities they targeted as weaknesses have become your most unassailable strengths. As you continue to evolve beyond this experience, remember that your transformation isn't just personal, it's part of a larger awakening. Each person who makes this journey from exploitation to empowerment creates a template that makes the path more accessible for others. Your healing ripples outward in ways you may never fully witness, but that change the fabric of possibility for everyone your life touches. The ultimate truth, the one that completes the superempath's exit, is recognizing that you were never truly trapped by the narcissist. You were always free to reclaim your power. The prison was built of beliefs, not bars. Beliefs about your worth, your responsibility, your capacity to exist without their validation. And in dissolving these beliefs, you haven't just escaped a toxic relationship. You've discovered a sovereignty that transcends any external circumstance. This is the superempath's exit. Not just leaving a relationship, but transcending the entire paradigm that made it possible. And in this transcendence, you become a beacon for others still finding their way through the darkness. Your freedom becomes their possibility. Your healing becomes their hope. Your transformation becomes their roadmap home to themselves. And that, ultimately, is why your journey matters beyond measure. Because in freeing yourself, you've helped free us all.